computer so I can find it. Okay. All right, so we're recording now. All right, we'll go in 3, 2, 1. Hey there, I am Elizabeth Tolan, Mrs. Wyoming 2019, and this morning I'm going to be doing an interview with a current contestant in the Mrs. Wyoming pageant, and that is going to be held on July 11th in downtown Denver. So we thought this would be a fun way for you to get to know the ladies who are participating. So without further ado, please go ahead and tell me your name and the city or area that you are representing in the 2020 pageant.
So I'm Cassandra Yoder, and I am Mrs. Park County. And for those of you who are not from Wyoming, that's way up in the northwest corner. It's the same county as Yellowstone.
That's awesome. Thank you. All right. So now this one's going to be a little bit about you. So go ahead and take about a minute and tell us all about Cassandra.
Okay, Liz. So while you have transplanted out of Wyoming, I am transplanting into Wyoming from Kansas. My husband and I first fell in love with Wyoming when we were on a cross-country road trip about 4 years ago, and we knew that we wanted to move there and raise our family. We're very adventurous, and my initiative is all about being healthy and getting out and doing things together. So we thought Wyoming would be a great place for us to move together. I am transitioning from being a full-time high school science teacher into a stay-at-home mom, volunteer, and citizen scientist.
That's awesome. So what prompted you to want to participate in the Mrs. Wyoming pageant?
Well, what I love about the Mrs. America organization in particular is the motto, "We are family," because that is such a huge part of my life. I love the service orientation, and I love the connection to Victoria's voice. When I began reading Victoria's diary, it was about 10 p.m., and I was laying in bed, and I didn't finish till I was done, because I saw so much of me in that story and so much of my battles and my overcoming alcoholism. And that story of victory is something that I want to bring to the table, and it's something that I think would make me a good Mrs. Wyoming.
So we're going to go off script for just a second. There are probably a decent number of folks who are unaware of Victoria's Voice and who that is and what that is. So since you are so familiar with it, why don't you go ahead and tell us a little bit about it?
All right, so the Seagulls are actually the directors of the Mrs. Florida America pageant, and they have ties to the National Mrs. America pageant. They lost their young daughter, Victoria, to opioid addiction. And while they were going through that process, they recognized how big of an issue this is for youth in America and how it's not being addressed and what we need to do. So the Mrs. America organization has partnered with them to raise awareness for that and to raise funds for that.
Yeah, we sure do. And that's a big part of the week at Mrs. America is the big dinner that we do and the big fundraiser that we all take part of. So absolutely. All right. So next question, what is a life lesson that you would want someone to learn from you?
I think that it means so much when somebody can meet an adversity, and rather than allowing that to weigh them down, they use it as rocket fuel to propel them forward. And I'll be honest with you, this isn't the first time that I've competed for the opportunity to go to Mrs. America. As a matter of fact, this is the 4th time, because I believe so much in trying and trying again if you feel like your message is important enough to share. And I think that as Mrs. Wyoming, it's not just about my message. It would also be about the message of the other local title holders, of the other queens from different states, because it's all about supporting women and truly creating a chain reaction of helping people.
So if you were to be crowned in July, knowing that 2020 has been a roller coaster, what would you think your reign would look like for the next year?
Well, through my Live It Well initiative and my story of transforming my health, I've already spoken to about 2,400 people across the United States. It's taken me from a maximum security prison in Alaska to a troop of Girl Scouts, and I have a goal of expanding that to 5,000 people across the state of Wyoming. I want to continue my work as a citizen scientist on the Sugar Matrix Project, tracking what goes into our food. And finally, like I said, I want to support other women in their endeavors. So a big goal that I have would be to make it to the projects of other local title holders and to increase the number of women competing in Mrs. Wyoming by at least 10 for the following year, because it is such a good opportunity for women.
So speaking about pageants, you mentioned before that you've done this. Is this your fourth time, or you've done it 4 times?
This would be my fourth time.
Okay, so tell us a little bit about your preparation and those different experiences competing.
Well, I think that my superpower is that I have what I call an Olympic will. I think that that is so important in a queen, because there's going to be times when you're disappointed, but you still have to be relatable to other people. And every time I've competed, I've learned a little bit about myself. I've grown in my skill set. And in terms of my preparation, I believe in preparing physically, mentally, emotionally, and spiritually. So how I handle that is I do 10 to 15 minutes of each of those categories every single day, whether it's walking, whether it's treating my body well, whether it's begging my husband to ask me interview questions. I just try a little bit here and there so that I'll be comfortable when the time comes to go into that interview or to go on stage.
Awesome. So where else have you competed before?
I've competed in Kansas for Mrs. Kansas America, and it's just been a really great opportunity that I'm ready to move to this new state and to get this fresh start, because I truly have a love story with Wyoming, and it would mean so much to me to have that sash in particular and to be able to represent that state.
That's awesome. All right, so different topic. Who do you admire and why?
I read a lot of nonfiction. I think I've read about 55 books this year, so it's really hard to narrow it down to one inspirational story. But somebody I read about recently was Victoria Hall. She was one of the first female spies for the United States in World War II, and she did this despite having a prosthesis. She didn't allow her disability to weigh her down. She used it to propel her forward. And she became one of the first female CIA operatives. I just love any story I can get my hands on about girl power.
That's awesome. All right. So besides the crown, obviously, what are you hoping to gain from participating in Mrs. Wyoming this year?
I think the sisterhood, definitely. I'm going to be moving to this new area, and we don't have any family there. So I don't know anybody, but I love women. I love being around women and drinking coffee. And I think that I try to find inspiration in everyone I surround myself with. And I think that Mrs. Wyoming will be a great place to find that, because these are all like-minded women who want to accomplish things.
Yeah, absolutely. The group has been phenomenal to be a part of, and one of the things that I had told Emily last year was that, winning's been awesome, but not getting to really participate in competing this year is kind of sad, because that's half the fun, is being there with women. Obviously we'll be there, but it's just a different type of scenario. All right, so something different again. Tell me about your favorite toy growing up.
Oh, wow. It's a little unorthodox, but my mother had a wooden cooking spoon, and I remember her stirring and doing things in the kitchen growing up. And that's honestly what developed my love of cooking. There's so much joy in it and so much creativity. But I also love G.I. Joes, because I was a bit of tomboy and I only had a brother.
We had a Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, so it's those little plastic guys. All right, so this last little bit is freestyle. So what is something else that you'd like to share with us today?
That's a really good question. I think that it's important for me to share the physical transformation that I have been through, because I've lost 70 pounds. I recognize that my body was valuable, and I wanted to treat it like I loved it. And I wanted to be able to be that inspiration for other people who need that. and I've helped my mother to lose about 100 pounds now. I am working to make a difference in terms of what gets onto the nutritional data label. And in everything I do, I live my message, and I believe that it's something worth telling.
That's awesome. Well, thank you so much for coming and answering questions today and being a part of this. Um, do you have are you doing a Facebook page or anything for your title that people can come follow you at if they're on Facebook or Twitter or Instagram or anything like that?
I actually have a blog. That's the best way to get in touch with me. It's mrsparkcounty.blogspot.com. I post all kinds of workouts and recipes and all kinds of fun things. And I am actually going to be doing a Zoom workout with a bunch of different pageant contestants from all over the country on Monday at 5 p.m. Central. So if anyone is interested in participating in that, it's going to be a lot of fun. You can email me at cassieandrich@gmail.com, CASSYANDRICH@gmail, and just come hang out with us.
That's awesome. Thank you. All right. Well, thanks so much for joining us today and good luck to you.
Thanks, Liz.
No problem.